annual pro day, and it's been a success so far. We have 17 of our outgoing seniors that are working out, plus Jordan James came back to work out, and Matt Mengel, and they've done well. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that all 32 teams are represented here, which is to me a really good sign of the direction of our program. But it's been a really good day. Young men are focused and working hard and doing a good job. So it's always a fun day to see the guys you've worked with for a number of years get a chance to go on this field and it's a big job interview, put themselves on display. So it's been good.
Big Jim, despite Tak's surgery earlier this month, he seems to be climbing up draft boards, based in large part, obviously his film, but just his enthusiasm and how he attacks the game, how he loves the game. Is that something that you saw evident the past 3-4 years with him?
Yeah, he's football is very important to Tak, and he's passionate about the game, and he's passionate about, improving as a player in every way. And I think that what happens with a guy like Tak is he's, they don't know him that well, but as they get to know him through the interview process at the combine, and then they come in for individual visits, and obviously he won't work out because of his shoulders. They get to know his personality and what drives him and how motivated he is. And they also realize, I think, that he's got a tremendous upside still. We take a lot of pride in sending guys out of here that aren't raw. And Tak, with all the success he's had here, really just kind of started playing that position. So he's still got great upside. I think that scouts and decision makers recognize that, and they love that about him.
Can you tell us about Fabian, how he's doing?
Fabian, I've gotten a ton of calls about Fabian. I think that at the combine he really opened some eyes. He ran really well. He measured well. He was, a little over 6 feet, and he was 206 pounds. And I think that I'm not sure what the verified time was. I heard it was like a 4.35, and he verticaled 38. So, all the measurables were there. And teams are looking for cover corners, and he can do that. He can line up and play bump and run and cover. And a little bit like Tak, Fabian came in here as a running back, so it's not a position that he's played a lot, and so there's still tremendous potential for him to be a great player.
Could he be a day one kind of guy who impacts right away?
Yes. Well, you mean a first round pick or a guy that can come in right away?
A guy who can come in and make an impact.
I do believe so, Sam, and it's because he's very intelligent. You hear all these acronyms, FBI, football intelligence, and things like that. But he has all those things. He understands the game. He competes at a high level every day in practice. It's important to him to be good. He's going to be very coachable. If he's in the right environment around the right players, I think he's really going to flourish immediately. And I think his long-term prospects for success are, undoubted. So I'm excited about him, and I think it's fun to see, people start to recognize what a good player Fabian is. And he's played a lot. He's I think it says something that he's a fifth-year senior. They like that experience too. So many kids are rushing now to get out of college and move on to the pros, and sometimes the best thing that individuals can do is stay in college and garner that experience.
Kenny seemed like he had a good day today. Ran it pretty quick. 40 times, showed some hands ability, catching the football.
He did. He ran anywhere from, I saw, every clock's a little bit different, but I saw a 4.22 and I saw a 4.33. So somewhere in there on both of his runs is what it was legit. And that's, whether it was a 4.33 or 4.22, it's fast. And then he did 19 reps on the bench at 225, which, for his size is really good. And he caught the ball well. And I think he's another guy that has a lot of upside. He's just had a little bit of inconsistency catching the ball, but he's a guy that, once again, football's important to him. He knows what it's going to take to be successful, and he's willing to do the work.
When you have a guy like Anthony Barr do what he's done in the league, how does it help sell these guys down the line in terms of, their readiness to play at the next level?
Well, we take a lot of pride in running a program that prepares these guys to be great players on Saturday, and then to go to the next level and be ready to contribute right away. As you know, Sam, in this world, there's not a lot of patience, you know, for draft picks especially. And you better produce right away because they're spending a lot of money on you. And so, you know, it's incumbent on us to make sure they understand how to study film, and they understand how to take notes, and they understand the proper mindset that they have to take into a camp, and how they have to compete every single day and take care of their bodies. And I think we've done a good job of that. You know, you get word back from, say, the Vikings. You're talking about Anthony Barr, and you're talking about Eric Kendricks and Anthony, and you know, when George Patton calls and said we've never had two guys that were so prepared from day one to come in and play, I think that says a lot about the program that, you know, we're putting together.
What did you see out of Jayon today, and what do you think his potential is at the next level?
Well, I think Jayon, he had a good day. People are going to question his size. You know, he measured in at, I think, 6'001", so 6'1 1/4, 226. So they're going to question his size a little bit, but he ran well. And when they turn on the tape, they're going to see a guy that makes plays, you know, and he's physical. And I think that, you know, they're going to compare him to Eric Kendricks, who's probably pretty similar in size at his pro day. And they're very similar as players and personalities. You know, they're both great leaders, tremendous teammates, team-first guys, selfless players. When I talked to the scouts, I compared him to Sam Mills, who I was fortunate to coach in New Orleans. You know, kind of a guy that people thought was too small, but he got it done because he was smart, instinctive, worked at it, studied the game. And I think Jayon's got a lot of those qualities. I think that Jayon has the ability to go in right away and be an impact special teams player, and then probably grow into a nickel role, and then hopefully into a starter's role. That's how I'd see it.
Since you've been here with Dayton and Kenny Clark and Cassius Marsh and guys like that at the defensive line, how does Eddie stack up with some of those guys?
Well, Eddie's a little more like Kenny than he is like Dayton or, you know, Anthony or Tack, an inside guy. You know, you're going to go a little bit on potential with Eddie, I think. You know, he didn't have the type of I guess it was going to be his junior year, but ended up being his senior year, that probably he would have wanted to have. But since that time, he's dropped down to about 305. I think he was 302 today. He ran really well at the combine. He's moving athletically. I think, you know, as I talked to the scouts and personnel people today, I said, you know, go back and look at his sophomore film when he was playing some offense, and you can see his athleticism, you can see his bend, you can see the suddenness and the strength in his hands, and those are the things that I think they'll look for. I think Eddie's going to be an outstanding NFL player because he has initial quickness, he has power, he plays with leverage. I think he can play nose and he can play three technique. And when you can do those things, I think there's a value add there. So I don't know that it matters where he gets drafted. I think he's going to have a tremendous career.
What's the key for him in terms of reaching that potential that you talked about?
Eddie, just continuing with the work ethic that he's demonstrated here recently, you know, where he just is of a singleness of purpose and very focused and you know, working on his craft. And you know, I think when he gets to that level and he can take all of his focus and put it on football and not divide it between school and social and football and just make it football, that you're really going to see him jump. I mean, it's unquestioned that he's got great athleticism for a big man, and just him having the ability to really focus in will be something that'll help him tremendously.
I saw a report that Fabian suffered some kind of injury on the bench press. Do you know anything about that? Or
It's being evaluated. I don't think it's anything serious. You know, I know he's back out here now. He's not working out. He did everything at the combine and had good numbers. So you know, a lot of guys decide to stand on what they did at the combine. You know, some guys come out and try to improve it. Fabian, I think, was, you know, his numbers were good enough at the combine that for him to come out here and work out today isn't that important. And all these teams that are really interested in him will be back to see him in an individual workout as well. So anything that happened to him, I believe, is minor and nothing to worry about.
We saw Ish at both receiver and
Excuse me?
We saw Ish at working out at both receiver and DB. Where do you think his future might be?
That's a great question, and I mean, I'm sure that teams probably, different teams have him at different places. You know, you're also going to see him work out as a returner here, and you know, for Ish, that might be his end. You know, as a returner. I think the fact that he can probably play a little defensive back and a little receiver could help in a camp, you know, because you're constrained by numbers at the NFL level, how many guys you can have in camp. And so if you can have a guy like Ish that can play multiple positions in a game, in a preseason game, late in a game when you're trying to, get young guys in. He might be able to show something that allows a team to keep him.
For guys who weren't invited to the combine, like Ish, Randall, and all those other guys, this is kind of their one shot.
This is their combine, yeah, and really. It's not their one shot in that a lot of these teams will come back through and do individual workouts. I mean, Randall has already worked out for the Tennessee Titans on his own. So this is just a chance for, coaches to get a little bit more up close and personal with them, scouts, decision makers, and then, they'll spend the next couple of 3 weeks coming back through and working with these guys individually, putting them on the board, testing their football IQ, taking them to dinner. I mean, there's a lot of little tricks these scouts use to find out about the character of a kid and the reliability. So our guys will be ready for whatever challenges are presented to them.
Regarding Fabian, how much have you seen teams' thoughts on him change based on the combine performance?
I think anytime you perform like he did at the combine, with his size and his speed and his explosiveness, people go back and take a second look. He played well in the All-Star game, but people are going to go off the tape. I mean, the best decision makers, the best drafters, they go off the tape. They don't necessarily go off a 40. A 40 might confirm, something one way or another. Vertical might confirm something one way or another. But if you ask a general manager in a moment of, weakness, to be honest with you, they will tell you that, it's the tape. I'm going to look at the tape and see what kind of player he is. And I think Fabian is a player that has shown improvement every single year.